Batya-Ungar Sargon, host of Batya here on NewsNation. Dan Turrentine, former Democratic advisor, co-host of The Huddle. Princeton University political science professor Lauren Wright. Batya, start with you. If this is what Ali said is a target, meaning somebody who ICE was going after and then resisted, that changes things, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think something to keep in mind, even over the tragedy of Renee Good, is the fact that we're not seeing these protests grow. We're seeing them get more extreme. The people who have already chosen to make this a large part of their recreational life, opposing ICE, trying to remove violent criminals from our streets, they are getting more intense in their opposition, but we're not seeing thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets. I think that when the details come out here, it'll be clear what happened. Recreational life was your best line. I've heard in a long time.
And there's something to that now, that for many, this has become like an avocation, and people are documenting on TikTok and getting hundreds of thousands of followers. But Dan, this is the question. If Democrats, it's one thing to be seen as aligning with Renee Good.
Yeah.
An American, a U.S. citizen who was shot, we can all probably agree shouldn't be dead, but at the same time, the officer who did it was justified. Two things can be true at once. If Democrats then take that a step further and side with an ICE target, somebody who they were going to arrest, that's a very different conversation.
Well, it is, and I think, look, one of the big questions is, was he resisting his arrest? And I think, Leland, in this environment, is there video? Right? I think when people see images, it changes the equation. But at this
point, given the amount of rhetoric right now, who wouldn't resist, right? You got a 50-50 chance of getting a crowd and getting help and on and on and on.
Well, I mean, look, there's reports that he might have tried to strike an ICE officer.
I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I'm saying that people fighting ICE have been emboldened.
I think, look, to a lot of Democrats, they feel like ICE agents have become emboldened. Now, again, we don't know the facts. This could have been routine. They are doing their job. One of the problems the Democratic Party has is they can't separate the personnel from the policy. They're so frustrated with what Trump is doing that they're taking it out on agents who, as Batya said, are simply doing their job. And that creates a huge friction point in an area like, Minneapolis, where this is pretty controversial.
And who would want that job in this environment? It's extremely dangerous. There's people attacking you in a variety of ways, pointing their cars at you, doing all sorts of things. And that does need to be considered. You don't get to pick and choose how law enforcement operates in this country. You do it through the politicians. You go talk to your representatives. You don't block a police car or an ICE car.
Yeah, but the politics of this, and it's interesting, the groups of people, especially that Olivia was talking about in the segment before, the soccer moms, the nurses who are now part of, as you said, choosing to spend their recreational time out fighting ICE, not protesting, but fighting. How do you explain that?
It's a great question. I mean, I think something a lot of us are asking ourselves right now are, why are these white women so angry? What are they so
present company excluded
angry about? But I mean, you look at the footage of the protesters now, it is oftentimes, especially in this Minneapolis footage, people like Renee Good and her partner. And it is so amazing that you are not seeing, as I said before, a mass protest movement of people of color taking to the streets in order to defend these illegal migrants. You're seeing it coming specifically from the Democrats' new base, which is college-educated, affluent women.
Well, look, I think it's not just Minneapolis. There is a lot of intensity, right? We saw it in Chicago. You saw it in Los Angeles. In Blue America, there is huge pushback. And one of the things, if you trafficked on Blue Sky and other places, is that you would hear for months Democrats saying, hey, people who shouldn't be getting pulled over are getting pulled over. They're arresting American citizens. And what you're now seeing is this idea of taking video cameras, hitting the streets, being loud and protesting. I think there is a lot of energy behind this, that this is not just kind of organized, elite moms. And I think one of the problems that the Trump administration has is in big parts of this country, there are a lot of people that don't want this. And we can say they're enforcing the law, we can say that they're going in, but anytime you start having thousands of people say, we don't want something, it's a problem.
But the belief system of these people, I don't think it really matters what they look like all the time, but I think it's an interesting observation, Batya. They believe these are Nazis. They believe this is secret police.
Right, they believe
if
Nazis,
you believe those things,
right, they
then
believe
yes,
that. Okay, so
you
it's
would be
sincerely
behaving this way.
It's a sincerely held belief, but I'm going to take that a step further.
Yeah.
Because it is this sort of elitist credentialed class, right? College campuses.
With time on their hands.
Educated white women with time on their hands, normally who have more degrees than they do income. Okay, we're going to stay with this as we're watching these pictures, see if we get any more information. But the question, Lauren, is how do these people sort of go from I'm anti-ICE, I'm pro-Palestinian, and I don't care about anybody who's getting killed in Iran standing up for freedom?
I don't know the answer to that. Sometimes it's completely circumstantial. It's whatever you happen to be doing at the moment. And sometimes it's ideological. And if that person is an enemy of Israel, then they're a friend of mine. I mean, that's what we sometimes see with college students. That's sometimes what you see on the far progressive left. But it could be a variety of reasons. It could be that there's no organizational support like there was for the pro-Palestine movement.
So for folks just joining us right now, you're looking at live pictures of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and an ICE shooting there. There was ICE agents, we were told, out on a raid, out to try and capture someone. And initial reports indicate that the person they were trying to capture may have started fighting with ICE agents or trying to attack them and was shot. We do not believe that person was killed. But a target of an ICE raid, meaning somebody who was here illegally, has been shot, we are told, in Minneapolis. And that's 1/3 maybe of the story. The other side of the story is that now there has been this swell of agitators and protesters and anti-ICE folks, ICE resistance folks, that have now streamed in to this scene. You're seeing right now a lot of the ICE cars leaving. And typically in these situations, a different agency comes in and investigates. Maybe the FBI does the crime scene and then just decides about the legality of the shooting. And it is the Minneapolis police who are supposed to provide security around the scene. So far, we haven't seen any clashes between ICE or police and these protesters. Batya, to you on this, there is this Bernie Sanders who honeymooned in Moscow feel.
Where is he going?
No, there is this feel of the sort of the socialist left that is all things anti-West, the oppressed and the oppressors, somehow the people here illegally have been oppressed. ICE is the oppressors. We're going to fight ICE.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so
I can get a
amazing-
whiteboard if anybody you need it.
What's so amazing is that obviously immigration is an issue that divides Americans along class lines because illegal migrants are not competing with the soccer moms for jobs. They're competing with people who don't have a degree, people who don't use the English language in their job, but use physical skills, right? Working class people, the majority of whom voted for Donald Trump. The majority of Americans still support deporting not the worst of the worst, but every single illegal migrant. And there is
I don't know about that anymore.
much denial about that from the Democrats. But you know how you know that I'm right? Because you, Dan, probably do not support bringing back abolish ICE.
100%. I would not do that. But what I do think is the politics of this are changing. And this goes to the idea of video. When the videos were the border at chaos or guys with tattoos and shaved heads who were criminals, the American people were like, amen. But now that it's going into kind of middle-class neighborhoods and it's a 25-year-old or 30-year-old woman who looks like she could be somewhat your neighbor, Americans are like, I don't love that.
And
so if you look at
the video changes. Well, the video though, I think it's something like 2/3 of Americans or more have seen the shooting of Renee.
75%.
That shooting, you can't watch that and not feel uncomfortable. Seeing it, even if you say the officer was justified, as an American, you sit there and you go, ugh, this is disorder in America. You can hear the whistles and the banging of the drums and everything else by protesters, ICE resistance, whatever you want to call them, outside of the area of this shooting in Minneapolis. I want to bring in Mike Nellis, Democratic strategist, the author of Endless Urgency on Substack. Mike, I think we can agree, first of all, as we said, there's going to be more violence in Minneapolis. That's just the way it is. That if the reports hold true that this was someone here illegally who started fighting with ICE, it is going to be a very different situation than what we saw a week ago with a U.S. citizen being killed in their car that they used to try and drive towards an ICE officer.
Yeah, I do think it'll be a different situation once we get a sense of the facts here, but I don't think that there has to be more violence and more chaos on the street. I think the decision that the Trump administration made in the wake of Renee Good's shooting to surge 1,000 ICE agents into Minneapolis was a mistake. And it's a consistent theme here of every time something happens, they surge in to make the situation a lot worse. Just like the shooting itself, we can argue the details of it, but those ICE officers escalated it. And I think that led to Renee Good's death, and it was unnecessary. And you guys were just talking about polling a second ago, but earlier today, CNN has a poll out that has the majority of Americans saying that ICE makes our cities less safe. And do you know how hard it is to get the American people to be opposed to something that has to do with law enforcement? It's a lot. And I think that's how frustrated people are right now.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.